Welcome to the AXPONA Audio Insider Podcast. My name is Lenny Florentine, and I am here with Greg from United Home Audio, which you're pretty close to me, Greg. So it's not like you're across the world or across the country right now. This is a first. You're pretty local to me, but look at all those reel-to-reel tape decks behind you. That's amazing.
Yep. I've been doing this for about 17 years now. And when I first started doing it, I tell you, I really got ridiculed because at that time, DACs were just starting out and the whole digital thing was exploding. And here I am showing analog tape. Okay. So it was kind of interesting because I figured the best way to get the message out there about analog tape was to do audio shows. So I started doing audio shows, and lo and behold, guys would come to the door, they would look in, they would laugh and ask me if I had 8-track tapes or, what am I doing? Are you crazy? And so after a couple of shows of that, some people listened and it was all good. But I made this tape deck right up here with the crazy Celtic cross on it to basically point my finger and say, hey, if you want to make fun of me, make fun of this, okay? But people really, couldn't complain about the sound. And the whole thing started, I guess, ultimately by the Tape Project, because those guys were the first ones that really put out copies of, actual master tapes. So they did it on 1/4-inch tape, 2-track, with at 15 inches per second, with an IEC EQ, which sounds very, very good. And, people always ask me, well, why? Well, the answer is very simple. How was the music originally recorded? Okay. If it was recorded to digital, wonderful. Stick with digital. But however, a lot of the music that the audiophiles were listening to at the time and still are listening to was originally recorded onto tape. So why recreate the wheel? Okay. Why take this tape and convert it to zeros and ones? Okay. Why take this tape and squish it to vinyl and all of the process that goes along with squishing vinyl? One thing, one could say about vinyl, not that I don't like it, I do. I've been a vinyl guy for forever, been an analog guy forever. But you have to admit, when it requires a machine to clean the disc before you play it, there's some issues there, whereas tape bypasses all of that. So it was a pretty simple process in my mind anyway, to cut out all of this craziness and stick with the way it was originally recorded. And that's what I've done. But it's also been a labor of love because, as an audiophile myself, back in the day, mowing grass to buy audio gear as a kid, I always had the sound quality in mind and was lucky enough to grow up in the 60s and 70s and 80s, when music was really extraordinary, in my opinion. And to be able to go back to some of this stuff and hear it in a very, very different way is, to me as an audiophile, extremely important.
So what was the first reel-to-reel tape that you remember listening to?
That's pretty easy. It was Black Sabbath's first album. And in addition to that, Paranoid and James Gang Rides Again. And those were like the mantra, from back in the day. And all of the people in my high school that hung out, that was, to them, just absolutely fantastic. And it went on and on from there. I've been an audio dealer for high-end audio gear. A lot of people don't know that, but I don't just make tape decks. I've been an audio dealer for like 30 years. So I've sold every kind of product over this under the sun for many, many years. And luckily, I've been picked up by a bunch of these manufacturers to do shows with them. Over the years, I've shown with everybody. Von Schweikert, Constellation, VAC, Acora, Karma in Munich with a $1 zillion system. I've shown with the MBL Extreme systems a number of times. Luckily, they appreciated what I was doing and the sound and picked me up, and it's been a great ride, really.
So you make several different models of rotoral tape decks. Now, my other question is, what was the first tape deck you ever remember listening to?
Oh boy.
Or
That
owned?
was
What was the first one you owned?
Well, that was back in high school. Well, the first one I ever listened to, a buddy of mine had, worked on a deck, got it squared away. It was a, it was a 1/4 inch 4-track machine, and we played, the tapes that we had, the mass-produced tapes. They're in an audiophile world, they're not real great, but back in 1970-ish. They sounded pretty doggone good on a Heathkit tube amp that we hobbled together and some speakers that we rigged up. Kids in high school having fun. But it was all about the music back in the day, I mean, because, geez, Led Zeppelin was putting out, Rolling Stones putting out music like there was no tomorrow. It was fantastic.
So what made you decide that you wanted to start making these? And are these just made? Are these made from like? Do you build these from the ground up?
Well, these units behind me are built off of a Tascam prosumer deck with a very reliable transport, all DC motors, so they're very speed stable and reliable. The tape logic is great on them. You can go from fast forward to rewind, whatever you want to do to find things, and they don't screw up. They don't cause trouble. I've got a few hundred of these decks all over the world. I mean, believe it or not, I even have one in Bangladesh. And they don't come back. Once they go out, they seem to work for extended periods of time, even without maintenance. But I just don't really have a lot of problems with them.
So
Now,
what makes your decks extra special?
well,
Besides
first
that,
of
you
all,
can't really buy many. There are very, very few places you can buy new tape decks.
well, here's the thing. My tape decks are audiophile tape decks. They're not studio decks. They're audiophile tape decks. They're built to audiophile requirements and audiophile standards. First thing I always say about audiophiles is they want something that's going to work and it's not going to cause them any problems. They're not going to sit there on a Saturday evening, with a nice glass of bourbon in hand and go to press play and nothing happens. They don't want that. So I'm all about reliability, and that's very important to me. But in addition to that, you have to examine it right from the start, okay? You need a very, very good tape head. It all starts from the tape head, just like a phono cartridge. It starts from the phono cartridge, okay? So I worked with a company and developed a tape head to my specifications. And just recently, I've also worked with another company that has built me a brand new tape head that is absolutely spectacular. It checks off all my boxes, got everything I wanted on it, and I'm extremely happy about that. So it starts with a tape head. Then it, of course, like in an audiophile standards, it's the wiring. The wiring all makes a difference, okay? And then you go to the tape head amp, kind of like a phono preamp-ish for a tape head. And that has to go to audiophile standards as well. Like, for example, this deck over here, actually has, it's the top of the line, the Super Deck. The Super Deck has a tape transport. All it does is move the tape. And it has the tape head and it has the tape path modifications and the whole bit to make it all slick and smooth, okay? But this apparatus over here actually is an outboard head amp for the tape head from the tape transport. Then in the back, unfortunately you can't see it, there is another carbon fiber box, just like this one, that is the outboard power supply. So at that point, I take AC power from the wall, I turn it into DC power. The only thing that is in this head amp and the transport as well is DC power. That's it. Very, very quiet, very stable, and it does everything right. There are 3 power transformers in the outboard power supply behind the rack. One for the right channel, one for the left channel, and one that runs just the tape transport. So you have complete separation of church and state. It's a fully dual mono, fully differentially balanced output out of the deck. And everything inside this Super Deck head amp is thought about, matched up, scrutinized. Just to give you one example, 2 examples, I'll give you 2 examples. The capacitors in the unit are designed by us. They are made by a company that Wilson Audio bought, Reliable Capacitors. And when we wanted to make them, nobody wanted to jump through the hoops that we wanted done. For example, just one example, we wanted molten copper sprayed on the end caps. Well, a lot of people didn't want to fool with molten copper, but contacting Dwight Schmoot at Wilson, he said, hey, we'll give it a stab. And they did, and they pulled it off, and they sound absolutely amazing, okay? The other thing that's kind of interesting is the boards. All of the boards in the deck are a hyper-pure copper with a sheet of gold, real gold, above and below the board, ceramic dielectric, so that they are completely isolated, and the highest materials that we could put on a board to make the audiophile dream come true. Basically, it's special wiring inside, and that's the top of the line. It also, a lot of people don't know this, but this deck, for example, is a super record deck. Not only does it have the super playback electronics, but it also has the super record electronics as well, which are completely separated from the playback 100%. Everything has its own board, the right channel, the left channel, the EQ, the gain stage, the oscillators sit on their own board that are all brought back through analog to AC to DC conversion devices to separate them from everything else in the food chain. So it's all been thought through. The chassis are all billet aluminum. They're about 70. The whole Super Deck is a bit over 200 pounds. But they're 3 different, items, so you can move them around. They're not like a studio deck, which is big as a washing machine, and you need a few people to move it. An audiophile can actually move this around within reason.
So what's the biggest challenge of building these decks now?
The biggest challenge, at this point, a lot of it's been overcome. Because what I've noticed is all the way from making the very first deck that I made to the last one that's come off the assembly has been that every time we made a change for the better, it was audible, okay? And what I realized is the amount of information that's actually on these tapes is extraordinary. It's just that you got to get it off. And that's been the realization over these 17 years that I've been fooling with it, because I'm always doing this for myself. All right. I'm doing it because when I sit down and I listen to my system, I want to be impressed. I want to impress others with it. When I go to a show, same thing. Okay? So it's all about, getting the maximum off of these tapes that you can get. And, the next logical question becomes, well, what kind of tapes are out there? What can I get? Well, I can tell you, this company, Record the Masters, Record RTM, Record the Masters. They are making very, very high quality blank tape, which fuels everything that I need to do. They have a SM900 tape that's about 34 minutes, very high quality. They also make an LPR 90, which goes to about, I've seen it anywhere from 45 to 48 minutes. So the interesting thing about this reel is you can almost get a whole album on one reel if that's what you're looking to do. But there's also lots of companies out there that are producing tapes. Like this is, who is this? MA Recordings. MA Recordings, and this is the Bach Goldenberg Variations. Kind of interesting. Comes in a wooden box with 2 tapes. Kind of nice on that. There's also International Phonograph Incorporated. Jonathan Horwich, my buddy, he has recorded a lot of interesting jazz, and he produces quite a few tapes. Very nice stuff. This was a wild one that I picked up. Believe it or not, Star Wars on analog tape. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tapes. So that's kind of interesting. I haven't even opened it up yet, but looking forward to listening to that. Then there's also Jan-Erik Presson from Opus 3 Records. Actually, Opus 3, interesting thing, Jan-Erik came to one of my shows. I think it was at CES. And I pitched him because I knew he had tapes. So this was way, way, way back in the day. And I pitched him on, hey, dude, why don't you put tapes out there for everybody? And he thought about it. And he said, let me think about it. I'll get back to you Sunday. Well, he came back to me at the show on Sunday and says, I'm going to do it. And the interesting thing about Opus 1 is he's got a lot of interesting artists, but he also has compilation tapes that you can get. So you can play a variety of stuff on his compilation tapes, which is...
So are these all recorded off master recordings?
Yes. In addition, you got Lynn Stanley. Lynn Stanley. She signed her tape for me. She's an artist, kind of an audiophile singer. She's done a lot of events at the shows and stuff, but she puts out analog tapes. So she signed this one for me, which was nice. Then there's Hermelina Records. This is a Pavarotti tape, actually, that was sponsored by Pavarotti's relatives, what have you, and they put it out on tape. Very nice. It's a couple of tapes, and they come on these nice orange reels, so that's kind of cool. Of course, then you go to STS Records. STS, they do a lot of interesting jazz and stuff. Another place that you can get what I call new generation master tape copies. Also, Ultra Analog Recordings. Ed Pong up in Canada. He records up and coming new classical artists, and some of these people are really quite good performers, and he seems to capture it, pretty well. So ultra analog recordings are always great.
So, for somebody that's never listened to a reel to reel before, what sound can they expect from it that they don't get with other formats?
You get the complete enchilada. In other words, a lot of times I listen to vinyl. I like vinyl, don't get me wrong. I listen to it. But sometimes the pops and the clicks and the surface noise and intermodulation distortions come out at me because I'm so used to listening to the tape. And in the same token, digital, I don't know, it's gotten a lot better. Don't get me wrong. Absolutely, it's gotten a lot better. But when you listen to the tape just has more there. And I think there's been a lot written about it, from people that are much more elaborate about it than me. But when I sit down and listen to it, I don't feel like I'm missing anything. What I'm feeling is I'm hearing in between everything, in between the notes. I'm hearing um, more um, more of the subtle nuances that the microphone happened to pick up, and the bass is certainly a lot better and tighter.
Do you think that reel to reels are, going to start making more of a comeback?
They have to, honestly, and the reason is that the more people hear it, the one thing I've learned of doing countless shows, I couldn't even tell you how many. To give you an example, just last year I did 6 audio shows, 6, and it's expensive, it's time consuming, it's backbreaking, it's all these things. But I look at it like uh, a Pied Piper kind of effect. In other words, if I let some people listen to it, they will become impressed. Like, for example, one of the things I did many, many, many years ago was I decided, hey, let's do an after hours event at the shows. So what we would do is at 6 o'clock, we would shut down at the shows, and we would open up again at 8 o'clock. And at 8 o'clock, we would just play nothing but tape copies. That's it, just tape. And these things would literally go on to sometimes 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning, and the place is packed. And it was because people were hearing things that they had not heard before. And that's very exciting to me. I
Do you
always
get a lot
thought
of
that
people
was
that
great.
come in who have never heard a reel to reel before? Or is it more
Absolutely.
people who remember them from the 70s and 80s and are excited to see one again?
Well, Lenny, I think it's both. I mean, it's really both. But there's certainly a lot of people that come away from it going, "Wow, I never heard that before." Just to give you an example, at Capital Audio Fest last year, a noted person, I won't say their name, but a noted person came in the room, and I was showing with MBL. We had a beautiful, MBL reference system there, and he wanted to listen to the new C41 DAC, and we did. And so the guy running the room with MBL, he says, "Hey, would you like to listen to a tape?" And the guy was like, "Well, it's a little obscure, a little this, a little that." So I stood up and I said, "Well, how about this? Tell you what, let me just play something for you. If you don't like it, you can get up and leave, okay?" So I played something for him, and it blew his mind. And he said that he had totally misunderstood what was going on, because what he heard was pretty damn good. So that said a lot to me based on who he was.
So, do you see more artists maybe making real tapes in the future, or do you see it still being more of a niche of certain brands that are making the tapes now, like finding older master albums and, recording them over?
Yeah, good question. I think that a lot of groups today rely on Pro Tools because it's so easy. Okay. If they make a mistake, they can fix it. If they don't like something, they can fix it. It's a lot easier. Okay. And if, yeah, will Britney Spears or will, Dia Lupa ever make a analog tape? I kind of doubt it. Why would they? But the thing to remember is that, for example, let's say you're a Led Zeppelin fan. Well, how was Led Zeppelin recorded? How was the Rolling Stones recorded? How was Miles Davis recorded? And therein, you find out, hey, well, a lot of the music that I like was actually recorded on tape, and therefore the logic of buying a tape deck.
Now, what is your favorite thing about using the roll-to-roll deck comparative to streaming? Actually, I'm going to take that further. Someone has only listened to streaming before. They've never listened to vinyl. They've never listened to analog anything. What are they missing, or what is the experience like for listening to a reel-to-reel for the first time for them?
Well, in terms of convenience, it's not there. Okay, I mean, obviously, it's if you stream, even if you put a CD in, for crying out loud, it's pretty easy, and off you go, and you can jump back and forth for tracks or go to different tunes if you want. Very, very easy. But it just doesn't fill in the blanks between the notes like the tape does. And I'm not so sure anything out there would actually do that. So the format that they created long ago seems to be holding up well today. Certainly, I hear a lot of the music that I listen to is, absolutely incredible. I love it, and consequently, I'm going to stay on this path for good to bring more and more reel to reel out there to the audiophile world. And really, Lenny, that's the audience. The audience for reel to reel tape is the audiophile. Okay, it's not the casual listener. It's not young people. It's not any of this stuff. It's the hardcore audiophile. And for example, most of my customers have incredible streaming systems, incredible DACs, incredible turntables. I mean, just, full blown crazy stuff, cost no object stuff. And yet, a lot of them say, well, most of the time I just listen to tape. So.
Well, I know it's always exciting at the shows. Everybody kind of, is excited to see them, and it stands out in a crowd when there's a reel-to-reel deck playing in a room, and, they sound good. And hey, I've used, several of these over the years. I'm very familiar with them. I have a lot of friends that have them, and they all love them, and they like to play around with them, and they like to get new hubs, and they like to get new reels and take up reels and just have a good time with them. A little maintenance heavy here and there for the older ones, but that's why something like what you have is very exciting, that you can get one that just works great. And that's a huge thing. But it's definitely a thing I would recommend people checking out if they go to the shows. Check out the reel-to-reels, because if you haven't experienced it, it's a really enjoyable experience getting to try these. So, Greg, I thank you so much for joining us on the show. It's been exciting. I love seeing them. I've seen them at the shows before. It's always amazing. Thank you so much for, kind of taking people on a journey that they may not have got to experience in the past with reel-to-reels, because, for a lot of people, it's only just, a memory of the past, and younger people haven't got to experience. So hopefully, if they haven't got to experience, they do at an upcoming show. It's very exciting.
Yep. Great. Thanks, Lenny. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Greg. And for the AXPONA Audio Insider Podcast, Lenny Florentine, Greg from United Home Audio. We will see you guys next time.